Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mechanics of Poetry, Season 2, Episode 5. We take a close look at 3 poems by a poet, and today's poet is Lynne Bronstein. So I'm going to give Lynne a chance to say something first before we look at her first poem.
I've been writing poetry pretty much since even before I could write. The first poem I made up, I had to dictate to my father. It was something about naughty children cutting their hands on tin cans and bleed, bleed, bleed. And by the time I was 9, I was writing enough poems that my father created a little chapbook of my poems. And by the time I was 23, I'd put out my first chapbook of poems. And I have had 4 books since then, including the most recent one, Nasty Girls, which Don published last November, which I'm going to be reading a poem from. I've been in journals all over the place. I have multiple Pushcart and Best of the Net nominations. And I'm probably the only person I know who has had poetry published in both Playgirl and in the regional newsletter of the United States Census Bureau, because while I was working for the census back in the late 70s, I wrote a poem about the project we were working on and published it. So that's pretty eccentric, I know, for a poet.
Okay, Prodigy, that sounds pretty good. Go ahead and bring up your first poem.
Yeah. Trying to make it come up. Oh, here it is.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, this is called Pantoum for the Nova Foam Mattress. Now, sometimes I write about unusual subject matter, but then Marianne Moore was said to have written about unusual subject matter too. It's just that now the time comes when you have to buy a new mattress. You can't stand the lumps anymore. And I bought this new mattress 2 years ago, actually. And I decided to write about it. And I decided to use the poetic form of a pantoum. Now and then I do use a poetic form. I hope that this is correct as a pantoum. Some pantooms are longer than this, but I think I got it down. So we can discuss that, but I will read my pantoum.
Yeah, James Cushing taught me just the other day. So I think it's like a dance step, 2, 1, 4, 3. Does that sound familiar? Well, go ahead and do the poem.
Well, I always have to... A bed is a place where a lonely head lies down. The body finds its niche amidst the sheets. The chores of the day gradually leave the bones. A breath and a prayer, and the hazy dream comes. The body finds its niche amidst the sheets. Slowly the limbs unbend and strike a pose. A breath and a prayer, and the hazy dream comes. The upside-down world now enjoys its time. Slowly the limbs unbend and find a pose. A horizontal sculpture, instant art. The upside-down world now enjoys its time. Inside the sleeping head, the body dances. A horizontal sculpture, instant art, removed for a while from outside traffic. Inside the sleeping head, the body dances. Secrets preserved from rude awakenings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you got it right.
Well, I know that I diagrammed it. That I've also written to Sestina, and for that I really had to diagram it. A line, B line, or maybe I used numbers, but I did write down the numbers for these in order to move them around. It's otherwise hard to kind of remember exactly how I got it started. I think I started with the first line, a bed is a place where a lonely head lies down. And then it just came from there that I got the first 4 lines. So then I knew that I was going to move line 2 to line 1 of the second stanza. And that's how you go forward with it.
And 4 becomes 3. Yeah, you got it right. You got it right. I really enjoyed your nouns.
My nouns?
Your nouns. Yeah, you're not cluttering it up with too many adjectives. I've always been told that good basic thing to make a poem powerful is nouns and verbs. Those are the most powerful words.
Well, we have bed, we have sheets.
And bones, that's an important one.
And bones. That was important because that was really what part of my motive was, that I have more aches and pains in my life now. And part of my reason for getting the new mattress was that I knew that it wasn't helping my my spine to be lying on a very lumpy, old, sagging mattress. I needed a new one, and that helped.
Yeah, your misfortune has been our fortune because it helps you write this so naturally. That I love that third stanza. That's a great stanza.
Slowly the limbs unbend and find a
Yeah,
pose.
yeah, that's the one. Horizontal sculpture, instant art. Inside the sleeping head, the body dances. Wow.
That's because we really don't know what's going on when we're dreaming, except that it seems like a life. It seems like our regular life. And I think about that a lot, and I write a lot about dreams and explore them and discuss them with my friends because it's been suggested to me that we are having a whole alternative life in an alternative universe in our dreams. If so, there seem to be certain locations that keep coming up.
Well, you know what that alternative universe is? It's your muse. You're listening to your muse and you're receiving the signal very clearly. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's always the muse because I keep dreaming about past jobs where I've run out of materials to work with, and I keep dreaming about my former apartment, and I keep dreaming that my furniture vanishes, and there's a lot of anxiety in these dreams. But the idea of this poem was to find peace. And I hope that the communication in it is that there's total relaxation, and that the person's body, yes, can seem like a sculpture if they're relaxed, removed for a while from outside traffic. Right. And the last line, secrets preserved from rude awakening.
Oh, yeah. Sheer
The
poetry,
ideal.
right? Yeah. Ah, lovely, lovely start. Let's see another one. What's your second poem?
Okay, now I have to go to second.
Yeah, bring it up.
poem.
Very good, very good. You know how to do this.
Yeah, this is the one with a great backstory. Desert Thunder. Yeah. I'll read the poem first, then I'll tell you the backstory of it and why I had doubts about this. This is called Desert Thunder, Santa Fe.
Mhm.
Why is the desert thunder so quiet? Why is the storm so dry? On one side, the sky is blue, the other gray, pierced with forked lightning. The storm moves away right before my eyes, a temporary visitor, as I also am, waiting at Santa Fe Station. The storm is a grumbling traveler, a stranger who can't function in the thin mountain air. The storm is the child in the plaza crying, clenching her fists, lost. The storm is my fatigue, my homesickness, the conflict of wanting to explore and wanting to just rest, the frustration of being hungry and being unable to chew, the desire to fulfill desire while seeking the pleasure of solitude. All that contradicts is embodied in the craziness of the blue sky and biting sun on one side, the dark gray sky and electric glitter on the other. Seen from a safe distance like a movie screen, the small, quiet, oddball storm comes at 4 in the afternoon and doesn't have the gumption to stay the night.
You said you had doubts about this poem?
That's what's so odd. Here's the story. 4 years ago, I went to New Mexico to visit some friends. We stayed in Albuquerque, and we went up to Santa Fe for one day on this little commuter railroad they have. And I found the altitude there difficult. I wasn't feeling so well. I'd also broken a tooth, which is why I refer to not being able to chew. And I was sitting in the railroad station waiting for the train to come back. During that time, the weather was going nuts because on one side we had a blue sky, hot desert day. And on the other side, there was actually a thunderstorm in progress. At least there was the dark sky and forked lightning and thunder, no rain as yet. And the weather was just so schizoid. So I immediately grabbed a piece of paper and started jotting down some notes for a poem on the subject. And then later I formulated the poem. But after I had written it, when I read it, I was bothered by it. I thought, I don't think this is very good. And I've only just hit upon why I thought it was not good. It's because there were some things, some phenomena, particularly nature, that when we're trying to describe it either in writing or through art, we feel like we can't get all of it. Now, there's a famous scene in the movie Lust for Life about Vincent van Gogh where he's painting, apparently it's the wheat field with crows painting, and he's thrashing at the canvas with his brush and yelling, it's impossible, it's impossible. Because the vision in his head, he couldn't get that onto the canvas exactly the way it was in his head. I think I had that same feeling with this poem, that what I was trying to say about the vision of the two kinds of weather, it just looked banal to me at the time. I haven't gotten it the way I really wanted to be, and maybe it's too cliche written. I kept fussing with it, and I didn't want to show it to people or read it or submit it for a really long time. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to take a gamble. I submitted it to Lummox along with 2 other poems because I figured Raindrop probably won't use all of my poems, so if this is the one that gets rejected, that's okay. Well, to my surprise, he accepted all 3 poems, and this poem is in Lummox 9. And now when I look at it, I'm saying, no, it's not so bad after all.
Yeah, you know, he's a
Maybe you
tough,
can
he's
share
a
your
tough
thoughts with me,
editor.
Henry.
He's rejected a lot of my poems, but he always gives me a second chance. So it's very nice of him to do that. Because I guess he's just seeking whatever resonates with him. And I'll tell you this, I'll take a close look at this poem if you like. Go ahead back to the start of the poem. Thank you. And some of the things I've already said about your poetry, I like a lot. You know, it's not a case where you have to be fancy with the language, right? It's nouns and verbs. That's what makes a poem strong. And you have, why is the desert thunder so quiet? And that's looking right away into philosophy. 2 things that I've been told are essential components of a poem are for it to be visually strong and for it to have some philosophical inquiry into the meaning of life, right? So this starts off right away asking a couple questions. Why is the desert thunder so quiet? Why is the storm so dry? On one side, the sky is blue, the other gray. I mean, so fantastic dichotomy going on here. Pierced with forked lightning, the storm moves away right before my eyes. So you're capturing it visually. I'm feeling that I can see this. So you're doing well. A temporary visitor, as I also am waiting at Santa Fe Station. The storm is a grumbling traveler. Okay, that's your first $1,000 phrase. A stranger who can't function in the thin mountain air. And you gave me the backstory there. But even without the backstory, I'm following that. The storm is the child in the plaza, even more brilliant. Crying, clenching her fist, lost. The storm is my fatigue, my homesickness. And that is a real great turn. Very specifically changing the subject a little bit. It's like the volta of the poem, but it's still on, it's related. I'll get to the part, I have a question. This is not it yet. The conflict of wanting to explore and wanting to just rest, the frustration of being hungry and being unable to chew. That is the big mystery. And you answered the mystery. You said you had a broken tooth.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you, if there was anything I could do to improve this poem, I'd be adding 1 line, giving that delicious detail that you just gave me. That should be in the poem, the broken tooth. Really. That's the one thing missing.
That probably is true, although it has been published now for the record. But
hey,
that was
poems can be published more than once by different publishers. You know, you have the Lummox version.
That is a funny thing.
Now you can have another version. Yeah, there's no reason to have just one version. I paid good money to learn that. And then you have.
Maybe I just thought that being able to chew because my tooth broke just sounded again just too ordinary. And I know it answers the question, but it's maybe that started getting into something so personal because it had just happened. And when I came back from New Mexico, I had to immediately go to the dentist and I had to have a crown. And yeah, that is too much of a backstory. You don't want all that in the poem.
I'm going to take this poem to the end because I really love this poem. I can see why RD liked it because you have an allusion too. Right under that, being unable to chew, you said the desire to fulfill desire while seeking the pleasure of solitude, right? That's an intended or unintended reference back to Percy Shelley's famous defense of poetry, where he says poets seek the, what is it? The spirit of solitude. That's what he said, the spirit of solitude. So, you know, you're right in keeping. all that contradicts is embodied in the craziness. And that's that dichotomy that's going on in this poem, right? There's the calm air, but there's crazy too. There's the blue sky and the biting sun and the dark gray sky and electric glitter on the other. You've got that comparison really strong. Seen from a safe distance like a movie screen. I love this line a lot. I love this line a lot because it's like changing the camera angle on the observation. That's something I really dig in a poem, where the POV, the point of view, changes. So I love it. I love it. And then this small, quiet Aldbau storm. This is like summing it up. Comes at 4 in the afternoon. It doesn't have the gumption to stay the night. The famous afternoon storms of Mexico. Legendary New Mexico.
I think it
Which used to
rained
be
by the time I got home. When I was back in
Yeah.
Albuquerque and I was back at my friend's house, that's when the rain came down in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
So the storm didn't have the gumption to come and send, or maybe it did, but I wasn't there. But rain did come down in Albuquerque that evening.
You stated it well. You stated it fabulously. And two editors now agree this is a great poem. I'll just say one more thing, and that is my ventures into the area. I went to Carlsbad Caverns. I wanted to go to Carlsbad Caverns, but there was a lot of rain and it flooded. The highway flooded, and we had to stay in the hotel for 3 days until the rain subsided and we could finally go to Carlsbad Caverns. So I can vouch for the weather of New Mexico, that you encountered that. That is so true. All right, we better jump into that third poem. Yeah, love that second poem.
Thank you very much. Feels much better now. Okay, the third poem. I'm looking. Oh, okay, here. Okay, this is the Nasty Girls poem. I had so many choices here. I decided to choose this one because, yes, there are quite a number of nouns here. This is all the poems of Nasty Girls, for those of you who have not heard the book yet or read it, are in the voices of real women who lived in the history of the earth, who caused scandals because their sex lives or their lives in general were just too nonconformist for the time period. Marie Duplessis was the top courtesan in Paris in the 1840s. She was the model for The Lady of the Camellias and the opera. What's the name of that opera? La Traviata. And yeah, she died at the age of 23 from tuberculosis. And she lived a wild life up until then. But I did research into all the poems of Nasty Girls about the lives of these women. And research I came across about Marie Duplessis was that in the last months of her life, she tried to settle down and finally tried to, follow doctor's orders. And they gave her a lot of orders about diet and medications. So the things she was told to eat and not eat and the medications that were prescribed are mentioned in this poem. And of course, they're 19th century, they didn't have antibiotics then, they didn't have the medications they have now. So you keep that in mind. But these are the thoughts that I imagine she might have had at the end of her life.
Oh, yeah.
No more rice gruel, fruit salad, almond milk, and syrup of fern. I want my frites. I remember looking at bags of frites in a vendor's stall. It was near the Pont Neuf, nighttime in Paris. I was 15. I had run away, good riddance, from my awful drunk of a father and the dirty, drooling old fool to whom my father sold me, from being plain Alphonsine, country girl, laundress, umbrella worker, and amateur whore. Ahead of me lay Paris, city of cafes and rustling silks, where I would rule at the age of 20. I feel dry in my throat, dizzy, must lie down for a while. The doctors will shake their heads. You must rest, they will say. You must refrain from what irritates. No red meat, no coarse bread, no spices, no salt. But they prescribe laudanum, leeches, quinine, opium patches, snail syrup. Their medicines are inane. I hear everyone telling me, refrain, be good, do not survive by killing yourself, try to get by the good way, don't sleep with men. I won't heed or hear them. I want to stay up all night. I want to transcend society's judgment. I want to be the nobility I stole by using the name Duplessis. I want to be the princess and then to abolish nobility, be free in a true Paris of liberté, égalité, and sororité. I won't need to be exploited and sold to the public in my ex-lover's novel. I want to be the girl who does just what she wants and does not have to die to be immortal. I will live to be 85, travel in my coach with the curtains up. I will sing like my future operatic self, but with no cough, and forget about the camellias. I will be the lady of fruits, like the ones I munched on, bought by a gentleman or a runaway teen on a Paris night so long ago.
Oh yeah, I was so happy you sent this to me and Four Feathers Press could publish this, because this is just a brilliant book. It took me completely out of myself, and I really like that. What versatility. You made a great selection of 3 of your poems there. These 3 poems couldn't be more different, except for the fact they all employ nouns brilliantly. Yeah, I don't want to give this a line by line because it's such a good narrative as it is. Yeah, right. You got that.
Well, my concept for all of these poems, because I've written a lot of poems in the first person. I have, going back to one of my earlier books, Roughage, which came out in the 70s. I had poems in the voices of Joan of Arc and Mary Wollstonecraft, the 18th century feminist who was the mother of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. And I had a reference to that in the poem about Mary Wollstonecraft. She died giving birth to Mary Godwin Shelley, interestingly. So I like the idea of stepping into the personae of other people. When I was about 15, there was a girl in my school who I couldn't stand, you know, obviously one of the mean girls, a popular girl, had all the boys after her, and she was nasty to me in a different way than these nasty girls. She was just, you know, snob. So I wrote a story in her voice. I did the exercise for myself of trying to be her and write as she would talk. And that was very therapeutic for me. But when I read it to my best female friend, she said to me, "That sounds so like Fran. That's just like her. You got her." You know? So I like to still do that and try to be another person.
Yeah, I love it.
It is like that.
There's just one thing we need to do now to conclude this episode. That is, people need to know how to acquire Lynne Bronstein's chapbook, Nasty Girls. How can they get a copy?
Okay, the only place that's available currently, and I'm going to go up to the cover. I want to show off the cover here, which my housemate James Everett Jones put together for me, which has pictures on it of some of the nasty girls down here in the lower left. You can
That's
see
Wollstonecraft, right?
Let's see with her.
Yeah.
Mary Wollstone, no, not Mary Wollstonecraft. She's not in here. But you have
okay.
Josephine Baker, you have Josephine Marcus, the center one with her French postcard picture. At any rate, the book is available just through me at this point, through my PayPal account. And you would do paypal.me/Lynne Bronstein. And it can go for $4. Some people have chosen to give me more money than that. That's their choice, but a minimum of $4. And I will send you a PDF of it if you have your email. If you also send me a text message with your email address. I am trying, hoping for getting a print copy out in the next few months. And then the print copy, I will try to have it on Amazon and other sites that sell books. And hopefully, as this pandemic subsides, maybe there can be live readings where I can sell it too.
I'll tell you this, if you reach that point and you want to get it printed, I'll make it no secret whatsoever that Spectrum Publishing uses Instant Publisher. And we learned about that from Rick Lupert, who used Instant Publish for his publishing as well to put things in print. So I'm telling you, in case you need to go that avenue, they're very low priced and they do excellent quality work. What they really give you, what you see is what you get. What you give them is what you get. They don't mess it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we better take away the screen share so we can say goodbye. Bye, nasty girls. And thank you, Lynne. Looking forward to
Thank
putting
you.
this up
Thank you for
on,
having me.
yeah. It should be up on YouTube this afternoon. Okay, I'm gonna
Thank you for
stop.
having me. I've been very, very
Yeah.
flattered and grateful that you had me.
Hey, you're one of my faves, that's for sure. Okay, let me hit that recording stop.